Every now and then we have to wait on the technology. Thank you. Good morning to everybody in the room. And good morning to everybody who will be watching us this morning as we stream the media briefing for the 43rd staging of Western Relays. A long time ago, and I believe in 1978, this particular meet started. Mr. Harvey was here at that time, so he will tell you all about it. But I'm really here just to explain that what we're having is a media briefing rather than the classic press conference and launch of Milo Western Relays, because in the past we would have a room full of hundreds of athletes and coaches, and every single athlete would have to introduce themselves and to get their first opportunity at public speaking. So this morning, because of COVID and other protocols that we have to observe, we're making it just for those who need to be here. And because my role, I work very closely with the media entity, I would like to highlight them, and Mr. Harvey will do the honors for everybody else, because everybody in this house are special. I see the Gleaner Company with us. I see the Jamaica Observer. I see Mela FM. Now, Evan Hewitt, not many people know that you're at Mela FM, so it's a new place. We know Evan to be in other places, but he's here with us this morning. We have Anthony Foster, who is streaming the media briefing for us to ensure that all of the media houses and everybody else who is interested to tune into Western Relays are aware of what's happening. And interestingly, 2 media houses who could not be here asked me, is it going to be streamed? And I happily said yes, because I understood clearly that them not being physically here, they can carry the news just as well as if they're here. And really very happy for the technology. And the pandemic has ensured that people are forced to look for opportunities. Not so much the challenges, but opportunities to do what we still have to do. We're particularly happy that Western Relays can be held this year. And so at this point, having done that, I'll turn over to Mr. Ray Harvey, the meet organizer, founder, and he's everything about Western Relays. So we'll hear from him at this point. Mr. Ray Harvey.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Trudy. Welcome to all present. I think I know everybody here, and I think most people here know one another. But let's not take any chances. In typical Western Relays fashion, I'm going to ask you to indulge me by just introducing yourselves one by one all the way around the room, so we are sure everybody knows who we are. Mr. Brian Smith, would you start? Thank you so much for indulging me. Please introduce yourself. Okay. Please Please introduce yourself, our latest guest. Thank you very much. Since 1978, this meet has been held every year on the second Saturday in February. Last year, it was canceled as a result of COVID. Montego Bay is home for the Western Relays, but since 2019, we've had to relocate to the GC Foster College as the track in Montego Bay is not usable and needs to be replaced. This year's Western Relays is different in several ways. Milo is not on board this year. We've been able to find several new sponsors as we try to replace the funding that came from Milo. The COVID protocol requires that we have a reduced number of competitors, so we will not be having several of our usual events. The 3,000 meters, the 1,500 meters, the 800 meters, the prep and primary races, hurdles, long jump, high jump, along with the 4x200 relays are not on the schedule. The 4x8 has recently been added to the schedule. The time between our races has been increased so that the sanitizing and spacing requirements can be met. Another of the conditions of meet approval from ODPM is that no spectators are allowed. This is disappointing, but we recognize the importance of safety first where COVID is concerned. However, races will be streamed live on the internet via track alerts. At least 3 radio stations, KLAS, IRI, and Power 106, will also offer live coverage. So loyal fans can still be a part of Western Relays 2022. The meet starts at 11 a.m. with individual events. 100 meters for men, 100 meters for women, 400 meters for men, and 400 meters for women. At 1 p.m. the relays begin. We will have 4x1, 4x4, sprint medley, and finish with the 4x8. As usual, some of Jamaica's most successful junior and senior athletes will perform. We expect an exciting day of competition. This year, we honor as our patron Mr. Leroy Cook. He was very instrumental in introducing electronic timing at the Western Relays in 1998 while we were still at Cornwall College. In spite of the great demand for his services, he's been with the Western Relays every year since then. His contribution goes way past Western Relays, as Mr. Cook is recognized as one of the best in his field nationally. We take this opportunity to express our gratitude for his contribution to Western Relays. We wish him all the best and encourage him to keep up the good work. Finding sponsors for sporting events is never easy. In the time of COVID, it has become even more difficult. When we reached out to the SDF for help, the response was very encouraging. Mr. Wilkes suggested that we continue with our preparation for the meet as the FDF would find a way to help us. They have. They have. We next got a commitment from the Gibson Relays. And shortly after that, the Jamaica Olympic Association came on board. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Water and Coca-Cola are now also sponsors. The Coca-Cola story is interesting. Up to 1993, Coca-Cola was our title sponsor. Those of us who have been with us for the long run remember the Coca-Cola Western Relays for several years. It's just so wonderful that they're once again part of the Western Relays. We're very happy that things like that occur. And it shows that we parted on very good terms, the fact that they're willing to come back. We always part on good terms. Several friends of this meet have agreed to sponsor individual races. And 3 of my University of Nebraska track team members have made a significant contribution. G.C. Foster College has assisted us greatly in our preparation for the meet, and they will play an integral part in implementing our COVID protocol requirements on Saturday. We appreciate their help very much. Data and photo finish services will be provided by On the Run and World Class Athletics at discounted rates, and we appreciate their help. The sponsors who are making this meet possible are not those who only jump up and down and wave flags when Jamaicans win races. Our sponsors are the ones who are prepared to make an investment in the development of persons who will become winners one day. We welcome their help in fulfilling the mission of Western Relays, which is to assist in the development of track and field athletics in the West and indeed in the entire country. Saturday, February 12, 2022, Western Relays will be at G.C. Foster College. We dream of being back home for Western Relays 2023. This needs to return home after being away for 4 years. We need to go home. Let us hope and pray that this dream comes true. There was a time a few weeks ago when we had to make a decision. And the decision was to continue our 44-year tradition of having our meet on the second Saturday in February, or just opting out, as we were forced to do last year. Two ladies, Trudy Williams, Shireen Young, and I made a commitment that we would find a way to continue almost going into 5 decades of continuity with the Western Relays. 3.5 weeks of tireless work has resulted in us being here today to announce that the Western Relays will be at G.C. Foster on Saturday. Thank you very much. Trudy, who is next? Mr. Chester. he is a very long time friend of Western Relays. This is not a new relationship. So good to have you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. For clubs and colleges, the Western Relays is really a special event, and we are really, really appreciative this year, in particular, that the Western Relays will be held and will be held at the G.C. Foster College. Because as an institution that is home to a college athletics team and also the home of Sprintec Track Club, we want to make this year's staging quite special. And we are featuring as a college a bit more, as you would have heard Mr. Harvey said earlier. So we are going to be an integral part of the rollout this year in terms of the sanitization, helping to make sure the COVID protocols are followed and followed to the latter. So, you know, I just want to say to all the clubs and colleges out there that will be coming or hoping to participate, just come on out and, you know, let us have a wonderful COVID Western Relays at GC Foster. So Western at GC Foster 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That reminds me to say that entries are still open for Western Relays. We don't close our entries until midnight tonight. So anybody who has not yet entered, the door is still open. Next person who is bringing a message from the Jamaica Administrative Athletic Association is Mr. Brian Smith. Mr. Brian Smith, again, is not a new friend of Western Relays. When Trudy asked me to find the program that had Coca-Cola Western Relays on it, to show Coca-Cola where we're coming from, I looked through it, and there I saw as our chief timekeeper one Mr. Brian Smith. That is 1992. Been with us for a very long time. So good to have you, sir.
Thank you. Morning, all. I just want to say all protocols observed. And I see my friend, Mr. Harvey, stating that as a chief timekeeper in 1992. But I want to say, when this relay started, 1978, I was there. And I was there with Kingston College. We were one of the few teams that came to the relay at Cornwall College. And that's a long time ago. In those days, we had just lost champs, 1976. Calabar dethroned us, and Calabar was in all their glory with the great Honorable Herb McKinley. That's just a small part of it. I'll give you a little more later. I just want to say on behalf, I bring greetings on behalf of the President and the Executive of the Jamaica Athletic Administrative Association. The event this year, it's just the Western Relays. There's no more title sponsors, and that is a wonderful thing to have, Mr. Chairman. You run the risk when you have a title sponsor of that sponsor pulling out, and I learned from Mr. Teddy McCook. When they had the Gibbs Relays meeting in those days, Teddy would also say to us, we would say to Teddy, why not get a title sponsor? You know his answer? What happens when the title sponsors withdraw? No, you are forced to look at other sponsors. So this is something that was always bear in mind. It's good to have a title sponsor, it's great. But I have watched World Athletics, the IF, having title sponsors along the way, and it comes back to several sponsors competing. As I've said before, this event started in 1978, and it has done wonders for this particular region. In those days, 1978, you only had about 2 or 3 other meets. The Gibbs Relays, the Stetson Invitational, and it was those days the Comet Relays. And it's historical. This event, for me personally, a lot of people don't know this. For me, it is historical, and it is very, I would say, it gives me a lot of pleasure. It made me much stronger, and I'll tell you why. In 1984, never forget, I had an unfortunate incident in January the 28th of 1984. And I was lost, totally lost. 2 weeks later, there was this Comet Relays, and I was looking something to do to occupy my time, to get out, the doldrum that I was in, and I found myself right here. That people look at me and say, "What are you doing here?" I said, "This is my life. I have nothing else. This is my life. This is what sustained me." And the second thing I want to give, this is historical, and a lot of you people don't know this, but this relay on February 10th, 1990, I wonder if you all remember. Anybody was there at that time? No? You were here at 1990? You remember what happened in 1990, February 10th? You remember? I'm going to tell you. One Aubrey Campbell was on the microphone, and I remember it was about 12:31, and Aubrey Campbell said, "Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please." Everybody stopped, because it get your attention. And Aubrey Campbell said, "Tomorrow at this time, Nelson Mandela will be released." I always remember that. It's something that sticks with me. That's historical. Where were you when the announcement was made? Comet Relays. I also wanted to say to organizers and everybody who is involved, the JAAA has spent a lot of money, a lot of effort and time developing the COVID Marshall Plan. Dr. Warren Blake, Dr. Carl Bruce, they were the pioneers last year when it started. They led the charge, and followed by Dr. Walcott and others. Do not be afraid to tell individuals, follow the protocols. Follow the protocols. Sanitize, wash your hands, wear your mask, keep your social distancing. I find myself, I don't know if because I was heavily involved in all the meets last year. Even last week, Saturday, I went to the meet and I'm there telling kids, social distancing. And they listen to you, Don't be afraid, the kids listen. And even adults, they also listen. Because you never know when that person from the Ministry of Health, from ODPEN, from InSports, from SDF, or SDC, will be walking around and observing. My advice to you all, what I did last time, I'm not perfect. My team was not perfect. We had our training, yes, but we're not perfect. What we did was to insist that whichever body came to our meet, we would say to them, look, here is Tom Stroke, here's John Brown. Walk with them. They are all COVID trained, COVID marshal. If you see any breach at all, tell them, and they would correct it. Because I know my countrymen, just have the pen on the weight, and they go back and they write them report, and you get a negative report. You don't even know how you get a negative report. It happened to me the first meet we had. When we had the wrap-up meeting the following week, I heard so much negatives coming out, and I said, my God, what is this? Well, I am not afraid to humble myself and go to anybody and say, look, I don't know it, so you help me. And I went to the authority and I said, come, tell me what I need to do to correct that situation. And I did it. Because you know why? I don't know about you, but I love track and field. I go all over this world watching track and field. I love it. It's what keeps me going. I enjoy seeing the kids come from nothing to something. So I want to protect it, and I'm going to ask you all to protect it the same way. Might be a bit long, Mr. Chairman, but it's something we need to do because we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. We don't know where this COVID thing is going to take us. So let's protect it so that we can keep our track and field going. Having said that, I know this year we're going to have, although a truncated meet, but a great meet, fantastic meet. As Chester's alluded to, the clubs and institution, and I can tell you, the high schools looking very promising. So, although it is truncated, Mr. Chairman, I know we're going to have a wonderful day on Saturday. We're going to have some wonderful performances and lead into World Championship and World Indoors, World Championship, World Juniors. I know it's going to be very promising. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Brian. You can take as long as you want when your message is as important as yours is. I think your history lesson was much better than mine, and I'm glad you were here to take people back 20, 30, 40 years. Thank you very much for that, sir. We appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to ask President of the Jamaica Olympic Association, Mr. Samuda, and a sponsor of the Western Relays to make his comments.
Thank you very much, Ray. Friends, I'm delighted to be here and to participate in this media briefing. And I really want, with your permission, to pay tribute to Ray, not only for his unstinting commitment in staging this event annually, but also his unstinting commitment to the development of our youth and our sportsmen and sportswomen. And his concept of development, Ray, is something that people should duplicate and replicate. The Jamaica Olympic Association treats events as experiences. And I would commend you to treat this event as an experience in the development of our youth, our sportsmen and sportswomen. But most importantly, not only an experience of the now, the present, but an experience for the future. Because what we are consumed with, unfortunately, is staging events. We must look for experiences for our young people, where we provide them with an opportunity not only to learn the progress of the sport, but also the discipline, the aspiration, the inspiration of the sport. And in that regard, I commend you and I exhort you to perhaps look at a concept in the future where you not only stage the relays as a physical event, but let us have a precursor of workshops, seminars, and create a festival which will be an experience of the event. We will soon be launching our Commonwealth campaign, and our watchwords will be wealth in the Commonwealth. There is wealth in sport, beyond times, beyond distances, beyond parchment. There is wealth in sport, and that wealth resides not only in our feet and hands, but in our minds, our souls, and our spirit. And it is in this respect Western Relay must morph itself into an experience. It must morph itself into an event that will not only be recorded by historians, sportsmen, and otherwise, but also our national curators of sport. So you are the custodian of the event now, but your legacy will fall to the custody of others in the future. And I have no doubt that you have prepared the ground very fertile for them to inherit an experience. The Jamaica Olympic Association is the apex governing body. But we are here because our members are here. We are here because our sportsmen are here. And I have no doubt that in the future, we will not only set an example for our constituent members in terms of governance, but what we strive to do is to go beyond the incredible, to go beyond the impossible. And this is what Western Relays represents. In the onslaught of this pandemic, you have gone beyond the incredible. Sponsors will go, titles will go, but experiences, Ray, will always remain. Our pleasure in supporting you, your team with Trudy, Shireen, our pleasure for supporting sport in Jamaica and for the development and aspiration of our youth, who are the earth's greatest jewels. Congratulations, my friend, and continue to do the good job.
What a message, Mr. President. What a message. What a challenge, Mr. President. What a challenge. This is very serious. President has laid out what he sees as the role that Western Relays should play in Jamaica's history. And I have no option but to find a way to rise to that challenge, sir. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for your message. We now are going to ask Mr. Wilkes to address us. And I have made it no secret that when we were wondering if we could do it, he is the one who told us, yes, go ahead, we'll find a way to help you. Thank you very much for coming, sir.
Thank you very much. A man who I have dubbed since yesterday. He was always, but yesterday, as of yesterday, started referring to him as Uncle Ray. I grew up at KC. Most people know that. I was never an athlete, but I used to be just there on that rugged field, and I'd see Ray, Teddy McCook, Mr. Ten, Mr. Aries, walking all over the place. I was never able to tell who was the head coach. Nowadays I hear of head coaches and assists. I never knew who was the head coach at KC. There were these old boys just all over the place. And of course I went in the, what we call them, the halcyon days, the years when we never lost champs. I didn't know what it was like to lose champs as a schoolboy. And so 1973, when Teddy and his team decided to do something akin to the pen relays, because that's where the idea came from, I was an official at the first staging of the Gibson then relays, which has now morphed into the Gibson McCook relays. And so 1978, when Ray decided to take it down to the other end of the island, I mean, everybody just had to laud him. And when you see the magazine, you will see in it an ad which I had the privilege of wording, just a few words, which says, "Congratulations on your tenacity," because that is what it has taken. Not just this year. Yes, difficult, and we managed to, but it hasn't been an easy road. I don't know that I can stand here and not say anything in response to Uncle Ray's suggestion of the need to come home. Here we are in Montego Bay, the launch of the Western Relays, and by tomorrow everybody has to bungle up and head to the east for the staging of the West, and it's a little incongruous, let us be honest. And so the track is there. I was there just a few days ago, and it's badly in need of resuscitation and everything. I am not in any position to speak with any great authority, but I would be remiss if I were not to indicate that I am part of a process that is in progress. It involves our minister. It is led by our minister. It involves the ministry. It involves the SDF. It involves the Ministry of Finance. And even tomorrow, I have been called to a meeting at which, and I am no great cricketer either, but I will have to participate in a little bit of an innings, which includes some batting. It's a process. And we hope that within the not too distant future, we will see the return of the track and the return of the Western relays to the West. But remember, I cannot speak with any authority in terms of timing and all of that. But I reassure you, it's not something forgotten. There is a process that is taking place. It is wonderful that in spite of all of that, the relays will take place at the GC Foster College on Saturday. And the work that has been put in to make this happen. When we got the call that Milo had dropped out, I mean, we knew we cannot afford to allow an institution like this, because that's what it has become, to fall down. And the directors of the Sports Development Foundation, it didn't take much to convince them. Our chairman, Mr. Suter, and all the other directors. And we were able to provide some level of assistance. It is not only the Western relays that we know we have to step up to. Yesterday I was at the launch of the Camperdown Classic, because we knew from last year that given all that had happened with the pandemic, 2022 was going to be huge. It's the year when things begin to return. World Championship. President Samuda mentioned Commonwealth Games. Many other things. Football, we are in the midst of that, even though we have had some disappointment. But the ladies begin their campaign on the 17th of February. And so sport is re-emerging. And with that, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. And I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the SDF, because there's a responsibility. It's called the Sports Development Foundation. And so we knew we were going to be called upon in a significant way. And we did make some effort to have something in the kitty. We do not have all that we would like to have, but we have made an effort to ensure that we can assist in some little way. There are still a few meets. The JAAA itself has numerous meets that don't have the name of a Western Relays or a Camperdown Classic or a Gibbs McCook Relays. You'll hear about the results, and we have to step up there too. Track and field has led the way for Jamaica as far as sport is concerned, but sport is coming through. President Samuda spoke to it. We know sport is a linchpin for development, and what is taking place here this morning is merely a precursor to an indication that sport will not relent. Sport is on the rise. Sport, if you'll forgive me for my parochialism, is like Casey, Fortis, Cadbury, Cedary, non-potest. Go right on, Master Ray, Uncle Ray. Thank you very much.
I will translate for the non-KC people. The brave may fall, but never yield. There were so many important messages today that my head is spinning. I thought I was coming here today to just launch Western Relays 2022, but it has turned out to be much more than that for me. I hope it is having the same effect on you, in that learning how people think about the Western Relays forces us to continue the mission which started 44 years ago, to assist in the development of track and field, and not just athletes, as President Samula said, the development of human beings. That is our mission, and I would like to thank everybody concerned for the assistance you're giving Western Relays in accomplishing our 44-year-old mission statement. Saturday, 1 p.m., or maybe a little bit before, right, Mr. Myers? Western Relays gets underway. 11 a.m. Yes, what did I say? Oh, 1 p.m. relays start. That's what my mind. 11 a.m. is when the 100 meters begins. Thank you all ever so much, truly.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. You know, when you have events and when you have media events, you have what's called a Kodak moment. Not many people know about the term Kodak moment anymore. But what will be carried, or what is the signature of your event? We're fortunate this morning that we have two. I know about one that I'm in charge of, so I will take care of that one, and I will see if Mr. Wilkes will take care of the other one. But for now, the Kodak moment that we will have is, I learned a couple of things coming into this year, for this particular year, because I started working or doing work on the Western Relays through Milo. They brought me in to assist them to take care of certain things. But this year, with them not being around, that's when I found out that Coca-Cola was the title sponsor. And that's when I found out what Western Relays logo looked like. It's so much more. And I remember saying to Mr. Harvey, are you going to talk about the history of Western Relays this morning? Because Mr. Samuda is here, and it would be good to give him something about the history, because I'm not sure how much he knows. But Brian, you did an awesome job with the history, because I listened and I learned so much more. I am particularly really, really very happy to be associated with this meet, because one of the things it does for me is that when you do creative work, nobody can really pay you for what you do creatively, because when you come up with ideas and when you see them happen, and when there are challenges and you're a part of the success or the solution, it feels awesome. So I'm really very happy, to work with it, and I'm allowed to have ideas, introduce ideas, and they happen. Mr. Harvey, listen, he's colossal. He's a fortress. He's a concrete tower, May I remind the Fortis and the KC and the Purple people, may I remind you that there are other people out there, and all you do is create and give them the energy and the motivation and the inspiration to go do more to come at you, if that's what you want. So there are other people out there. Yes. So be kind to them too, because Fortis is here, lots of other colors are here. I mean, I could say my color, but it's about Western Relays this year, and we're happy that it can actually happen. But to the Kodak moment that we would like for this one, I'm going to invite the persons who actually spoke this morning to come forward and to display something that you will see on Saturday at Western Relays. So Mr. Harvey, please come so that we can have this in the background. Mr. Chris Samuda of the JAAA, Mr. Wilkes of the the Sports Development Foundation, Mr. Brian Smith of the J3As, and Mr. Chester McCarthy of GC Foster College, and he's been around a long time. These gentlemen will display something for us, and one of the Kodak moments is. Please come before the podium so that
Okay. Good to go. All righty.
Okay. Again, I'd like to give a really, really big shout out to all the persons who watched the stream this morning. Mr. Anthony Foster is very, very proud because it was set up at the last moment, and we have several persons, and persons were waiting to watch before we actually started. We want to welcome the community because we're here for you, and we know that you all can't be at GC Foster College, but we want you to come back on Saturday and be with us and, cheer for us. The second Kodak moment, Mr. Wilkes, he wants to do it, so I will hold this for now. Mr. Wilkes is inviting Mr. Myers. Sure, definitely. It's at the front. Double X. That's your size. And since it is still the launch of Western Relays, are there any questions from anybody in the audience or in the media?
We have recently added or put back the 4x8 for men and women on our schedule of events. Several people have appealed to us and we've responded. The teams that want to enter, since it's not on the portal, you can enter by going to westernrelays@yahoo.com. Send your entry information and it will be put into process with all the other entries. westernrelays@yahoo.com. 4x800 relays open for men and for women. It's going to be the last event on the program, and I think it's going to be one of the very exciting ones. Brian is reminding me that this will be a qualifying event for the pen relays. So it's an excellent opportunity to qualify early and put that behind you.
And while you're developing your next question, it would be remiss of me if I did not mention that the Deja All-Inclusive Resort accommodated us this morning. They accommodated us without charge. And I'm not ashamed to say it was a last-minute request because the organizers of Western Relays got the approval on Saturday of last week. Hence, you couldn't plan it before you got the approval, and they said yes. And I'm really, the Western Relays are really very happy and pleased with the owners of the Deja All-Inclusive Resort. You have to support them because they support track and field. They support sports. So we have to support the people who support us. So remember, it's Deja All-Inclusive Resort. It's the former Gloucestershire Hotel on the Hip Strip, the Cliff Boulevard. You got to check them out and support them as well. So shout out to Robin Russell, owner of Deja, and of course to the president of the Boxing Board Association, Stephen Bomber Jones, because he also played a role. So we have to show appreciation where they have shown us love. Oh, okay, salesman is here. Mr. Brian Smith of the JAAA says that the Deja All-Inclusive Resorts rates are reasonable, so you can come and support them.
May I just suggest, with regard to the fact that you have the 4x8 and the final event, and you know how exciting that can be. Seymour Newman is around. He's still holding in Manchester.
Sorry, Denzel. When Foggy Boy.
Is it that all schools will have to bring their own pens, or there are going to be at least some
They're set up to have their marshals to have everything as is required, depending on your people along with our
Western Relays, because